tone it every time.
Hello? I don't even.
We unmuted already, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna mute it, like.
Hi. Okay, questions? Hello? Oh yeah, good. You can hear. Okay, so the questions. All right. Well, I'm so glad. Sorry, you heard me panic there for a second. Are we good?
I think we're good.
Okay, guys. Well, let's get started then. Welcome. We're beginning. Welcome to Financial Literacy, How to Teach the Basics. My name is Sarah Vale, and you'll be hearing from me throughout the webinar today. I'm the Network Engagement Coordinator for Hire, and I'm glad you could all join me for what's going to be my last webinar with Hire. To mark the occasion, I've included a few images I rarely get to use, such as this one of my cartoon self throwing money. Seemed appropriate. I had a lot of fun putting this training together, and I hope you enjoy the next hour as much as I'm going to. So let's get started. I have a few quick housekeeping notes to mention, which I was a little speedy there with my arrows, but this presentation will be available in the coming days so your peers can have access to all of the information we talk about today. While this is technically a webinar, please think of this more like a discussion between colleagues. In fact, that's exactly what it is. I'm going to be interviewing Nicole Redford, the new program manager for Hire, and you're invited to interview her too. Please use the chat feature on the right side of your screen to ask questions, but it looks like you guys have been using the question feature, so whenever I say chat, please just use the question feature. Sorry about that. But thank you. You guys are awesome. So yeah, use the question feature to ask questions, participate in the discussion, and share your experiences or activities or resources that work for you with the group. Daniel Wilkinson, Workforce Engagement Coordinator for Hire, is our moderator today. All right, so why don't we do a practice run, although you guys have been great about letting me know about the audio. If you could just let us know by using the question feature on the right side, what are some of the issues or challenges you face to helping your clients become financially literate? Or put another way, what do you want to learn today? Just let us know by, again, typing in one thing that you hope to take away from this training today. What's going on over there, Daniel?
Well, one person said there's no chat feature on here, so I think the one we want you to use is the question feature. If you don't see the chat, use the question. It seems that others are doing that. So, did you want me to read them out?
Yeah, just read us out a few to make sure we're on the right, wavelengths.
I would like to learn about how to have the budgeting conversation. Was one. That was from Kalita Armstrong.
Oh, hey, Kalita.
Ideas about financial literacy curriculums, Kat Davis. Resources for helping clients access Sharia-compliant finance products in the U.S., Cassie Iwata. I'd like some ideas for beginning English level learners, Heather Davis.
All right. Well, maybe one more if there's any.
Overcoming challenges with clients that have lower educational levels. For example, learning how to write a check is hard if you have never written before.
Yeah, for sure. Well, awesome. Well, we can see what we can cover over the next few hours. I think we'll touch on all of those things. And we'll try to answer questions as they come up. If you have a question or something pops up, just type it into that question feature there, and Daniel will relay it. And there will be time for questions at the end as well. But if for some reason we miss your comment or question, one of us will follow up with you directly in the next few days. So thanks for sharing what you want to learn. It's only fair that you know what we want you to learn. At the end of this webinar, you'll be able to outline 4 basic financial literacy training topics and have access to activities that cover each one. In addition to the training tips highlighted throughout the presentation, you're going to hear about a few financial literacy initiatives to explore in your community. My personal favorite is that when the training ends today, you'll have everything you need to conduct an effective financial literacy training program. We're going to highlight several resources that you might want to try with clients in your next class or training. In fact, you'll have instant access to a few throughout the webinar. When you see this image, be sure to check out the handout section that should be located by the question feature on the right side of the screen. There you'll find a resource that corresponds to the topic being discussed. So after this training is over, we're going to send you a PDF version of this presentation, which it's way cooler than it sounds. So anytime you see a blue box like this, it's linked to a recommended resource or activity. So when you get our email with the presentation attached, you can just open it up, click on a topic, and voila, access to a helpful resource. It's pretty neat. I'm excited to hear how it works, so let me know. So we've also incorporated some polls throughout the webinar. If everything goes according to plan, we'll share the results with you in real time so you can have a better sense of who your peers are and what they're doing around the network. I'm more of a hands-on learner, so let's just give it a try. Let's see. So, can you do the poll? Should I do the poll?
Select a poll.
Yeah.
First one, on average.
Yeah. Let's start it. All right. So, let's see. Our first polling question is, on average, how many weeks do you spend teaching financial literacy, either in job readiness or as part of cultural orientation? Oh.
Would have polls.
Polls. Oh no, I got it.
Oh.
Oh, you guys doing great. Well, looks like I'm not going to read those answers because you guys are just nailing it. We'll just give you a little bit of time to answer. Thanks for participating. Wow. Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't sure I never know what to expect. But a little bit of everything here. Okay, so I am going to, yeah, please. And I think you can share button. Okay, so we're closing the poll. And the results should be shared with you. It looks like the majority of you spend less than a week covering financial literacy. So at least that's something. But however you're spending the rest of your time, the work that you do is so very important. You do so much for your clients that it's easy to overlook your own professional development and well-being. That's what HIRE's here for, to support you. I think you can hide it now. Thanks. So that's exactly why I asked Nicole to join us today. She's new, so we really wanted to give Nicole an opportunity to hear from you, the network, what you need to be successful, so we can provide you with the support you need, especially with the uncertainty we face heading into the new year. Plus, she has a lot of experience developing job readiness courses and financial literacy curricula. So welcome to your first HIRE webinar, Nicole.
Thanks, Sarah. It's been great being here with you and Daniel so far.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
No better way to get to know your coworkers than being shut in a tiny room to do a webinar.
For sure. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I mean, I know that I already introduced myself on the website and on Hire's blog, but just hello to everyone in the network. I come to Hire with 10 years of experience working in refugee resettlement. I've worked in many different areas, but the longest time that I spent, and my favorite part by far, was employment. I have done match grants, I have done state programs, I have done Keep in Haitian programs, entry-level jobs all the way up to, you know, those upgraded high-skilled jobs, and implementing different programs and trainings along the way to really help our clients. So I'm so excited to kind of continue that work here at Hire.
Great. Well, we're really glad to have you here. So thanks. Thanks for joining us. So I'd like to begin by discussing what we mean when we say financial literacy basics. So if you logged in today and you're still with me here, this question is for you. In your opinion, what's one of the most important topics to cover when teaching financial literacy to newcomers? Again, if you could just use the question feature on the right side there, and Daniel will relay what you think is important. Yeah, Nicole has put together a really nice, great short curriculum.
So far, budgeting is by far the most common response, followed by credit.
Budget, credit.
Managing money, savings.
Sure.
Basic consumer skills.
I could use that, for sure.
Balancing clients' budget between welfare income and expenses.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Those are all very
Taxes.
Taxes. So important, but so boring. Okay. Well, yeah, you guys are nailing it. These are just all really important topics to cover. So, Nicole, can you walk us through how you define financial literacy basics?
Sure, Sarah. So what I did today was kind of put together how I addressed my most basic financial literacy curriculum. Obviously, you could spend ample amount of time teaching each of these four larger topics, but we'll teach you how to go through each one and what are some of the underlying features that each one can address. So what we have put together for you today is currency and banking, personal budgeting, paychecks and pay stubs, and, of course, the most hated topic, taxes.
Yes, indeed. Great. Thanks for that. So as we transition into the main content portion of our training, I'm going to start sharing some training tips specifically for adult learners. These are all techniques that I did my best to integrate into this training, so let's see how they work. So this tip, it's a little technical, but cognitive load means really how hard the brain needs to work and to learn and remember content. So the harder the brain has to work, the less it is able to process and remember. So by doing what we can to reduce the cognitive load, you're making the process of learning so much easier. And so to be able to remember things is a lot easier too. So the logical sequence of any training should be based on the learner. So when we decide we're designing this training for you, the natural logical sequence seemed to be a timeline, because we talk about client outcomes in increments of time, like 90 days, 180 days. So Nicole's going to walk us through what the first month looks like for most clients.
Thanks, Sarah. So what I did for my curriculum is to kind of understand how a client's journey looks like for their first year in country, and what sort of requirements or barriers that they face throughout their financial journey from day one through year one in country. So using that natural timeline, putting together the curriculum to address these things as they happen in sequence throughout the first month or even first year in country. So the first one that we have here, currency and banking, this is really something that's happening in that first month. Obviously, the most basic topics that you want to address are those that are what your clients have to do as soon as they arrive at your local affiliate offices. Because if you're not addressing them as your clients are experiencing them in your real life, then you're kind of just addressing something that they've already gone through, and you're really missing that opportunity to get that lesson in there. One thing that teaching financial literacy is important is that you're covering those initial months in country and that you're addressing the lessons that your clients are going to face. So, for example, when they go into a bank, you want to address that process from as if they had never done that before. And then you can expand and develop on your curriculum later if you want to go more into depth into these topics. But just remember that we're trying to teach you the basics today.
Yeah, it's pretty basic. So at the end there will be some resources that cover credit, for example, but we're not going to go into a lot of detail about that topic today. It's a little bit more advanced in regards to this webinar anyway. So does anyone recognize this person? Anybody?
I recognize her, Sarah.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, well, if you don't recognize her, you will by the end of this webinar. This is Amal Al-Hamadi, the character from Hire's e-learning modules, Understanding Your Paycheck and Income Taxes 101. So Nicole, if you were still out providing frontline employment services and Amal was assigned to your caseload, how or where would you begin in regards to teaching Amal financial literacy?
Well, Sarah, when I was working with clients like Amal, the most important thing for our agency was to take her and refugees like her into the bank on her first day in the country to open a bank account.
You would take clients to the bank on their first day in the U.S.? I guess it's better than the dentist, but geez, how is that even possible? Oops. Don't you need some sort of picture ID, a social security card, or an I-94? How about cash? How could Amal open an account if she's only been in the U.S. for one day, Nicole?
Calm down, Sarah.
I don't understand.
It's very easy. I think what a lot of employment staff is very great at doing already is leveraging partnerships within their own community to make a client's journey easy. So what we did was have a partnership with one of the banks that was closest in our area, and we really felt the need that the client had a bank account early on. Also, it was helpful to our agency to be able to dole out that initial welcome money, as they sometimes call it. So what happens is after we established a partnership with the bank, we were able to send our clients with a check from our organization and their I-94, and the bank waives the rest of the documentation because it wasn't technically required at that point in time. So they were able to follow up and catch that information later as they did get a Social Security card. But with that partnership, we were able to take clients to the bank and get them their account on day one. And in the end, the bank was even asking if they could come to our office to help make the process even easier.
Well, that's awesome. So I wonder if our network has partnerships like this. So guess I could just ask. So I'm going to open up another poll for you guys because I am curious to know this. I haven't talked to many people about this topic, so can we open up the next poll, please? Yeah. So our second polling question is pretty easy. Does your agency have a partnership with a bank? The options are yes or no, but I really wanted to include it's complicated because I feel like a lot of my answers are always it's complicated. But simple yes or no will be good. Yes. Whoa. It's awesome.
Could I interrupt with one question while
Yeah, of
people are doing
course.
that? Somebody asked us to please repeat what is required to open a bank account. You said you had an agreement with the bank where you only needed a 994, is that correct?
Yes, technically all that you need to open a bank account is an I-94, and most banks would be willing to do this. It would just take you going in, just like you do with employers on a day-to-day basis, explaining who your clients are, and explaining how you would like the process to go and how it would be easiest for you. Most banks are going to be open to this partnership because, like any corporation, the more accounts they open, the more money they're making. So if you have any more questions about the bank partnership itself, we would be happy to answer those questions.
Definitely. So why don't we go ahead and close the poll and share it out, if that's okay. So it looks like a majority of you do have, your agencies have partnerships with banks, which is great. I would imagine that's so helpful. So we're going to share some examples of additional community partnerships in a few minutes. But while we're talking about banks, Nicole, can you share some benefits of partnering with banks, although I guess you just kind of did?
Absolutely. I mean, just like any other community partnerships, a bank is very important, and I guess the two largest reasons is that you are, one, able to get those bank accounts opened with your clients, but second, I think banks and bank staff have a lot of community relations people, or even people on staff who are hired to teach financial literacy in the community. So your bank partnership can really open that door for them being the ones to kind of take the reins and teach these financial literacy courses.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. Great. So currency. I really wanted to dig into this topic because I recently went outside of the U.S. and I really struggled with currency. And so I just have tried to imagine, you know, how hard it must be for somebody that's just coming to the U.S. But so it seems like one of the first things you would have to cover is currency. So how would you cover this topic, Nicole?
Sarah, I think the best thing to do when teaching currency is to make it as visual and as interactive as possible. So the slide here is from a resource that Sarah found, but it's what I've seen in a lot of agencies as well. What I would do is visually just organize possibly the money in incremental value. And then go through each piece and ask your clientele if they recognize each currency, and then to ask them how much they think they could buy with each one. It's kind of a fun and interactive activity because clients are often surprised how far we have to go up the currency chain just for them to be able to buy a pack of gum or a roll of toilet paper. So it's just a great way to make it a visual and interactive activity. But also I would be very cognizant about asking your ESL partner, whoever's teaching ESL to your clientele, that they can back you up on this lesson. It's great that if they can teach it at the same time as you are teaching currency, so they can get more into, you know, possibly doing basic math skills with currency and a little bit more vocabulary around currency, and possibly even practicing how to use currency in the ESL classes.
Great. Yeah, so like Nicole said, this is just a presentation that I found on one of the resources I'm going to recommend a lot for you guys to check out, which is Finance in the Classroom. So you can download PowerPoints on a ton of different topics, and they're financial literacy topics and resources is really extensive. So, like I said before, with the blue boxes, hierarchy illustrations that you'll receive later after this, when you just click on the currency button, it'll take you right to the currency section on Finance in the Classroom. So it'll make it easy for you to access these. There's tons of activities, resources, and all that jazz. So, great. I think that covers currency for the basics. So it seems like helping clients establish trust with the U.S. banking system is a topic that came up a lot as I researched for this webinar. It was like the first thing on all newcomer financial literacy sites. So how did you approach this, Nicole?
Well, I think it's very important to acknowledge that this is something that should be done in the curriculum before you enter teaching the banking system, because before you get into using the banking system, you need to acknowledge that a lot of your clients may come from countries where the banks were corrupt, or there was no banking system. I once asked clients where they kept their money if they didn't have a banking system, and I think I got some pretty wide ranges of answers. I remember one even kept theirs in their chicken coop. So I think at this point in your lesson planning, it's a great point just to talk to your refugee audience, get to know a little bit about their background and where they're coming from, and make this more of a heart-to-heart conversation where you might not even need any sort of PowerPoint or handouts, but just acknowledge that in the past they might have had a different relationship with banking, but why a bank and the bank system in the United States is a secure system for the most part, and the best way for them to learn and move forward, because a lot of jobs these days pay via direct deposit. Most stores at this point are accepting credit cards and debit cards, so your clients are going to need to become financially literate in all of these topics going forward.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what you're saying is, or if I'm understanding it, you really need to make sure the client trusts the bank before you can really explain and have them understand some of the banking basics, which include checking and savings accounts, money orders, writing a check, and debit cards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So how would you cover these sorts of topics?
Right. So in a bank, there's so many different areas where money can be kept, money can be used. So a great tool in order to address using these different bank tools is to talk about something that all of your clients are going to have to do and have to know how to do, and that's how to pay their rent. And you can kind of go through each one of these subcategories and address how to pay their rent or where to save the money before they can pay their rent. The great thing, though, is Hire has already developed a very interactive and wonderful tool for all of you to use. So if you feel like you want something more visual or something that explains this better, Hire has the perfect tool for you already. Sarah, will you let them know about this great thing?
Well, I sure can. Actually, this is a tool that for this particular one, I'm recommending from someone else. But it is in the downloadable resource section. It's more of a tool for trainers, just to know how to explain to your clients how to pay your bills, but it is designed for training newcomers.
That's my fault there. I got too excited.
Yeah, I know. I wish we had done it. No. But I found it and was like, whoa, this is really amazing because it's simple, easy, and covers exactly all of these things. So thank you for that. So, all right, I think let's just, assume that Amal, she gets it. So At this point, she has a bank account. She knows how to pay her rent. What advice would you give her and me about managing my money so I can pay my bills and maybe one day be able to buy those sweet Air Jordans I've been wanting to buy?
Well, I don't know about that, Sarah. But for your clients during their second and third months, personal budgeting is going to become a big part of their lives. So in personal budgeting, it's really important in your financial literacy curriculum because personal budgeting is required for most employment programs. And that budgeting tool is to either show them how their income from a federal program or from state funding is offsetting their current expenses, and later to show if their income can cover those expenses. So I think under personal budgeting, you want to talk about these 4 subcategories. What's the cost of living? Cost of living for your clients personally, but also the cost of living in your particular area. Needs versus wants. Creating a budget with your clients, and then once they are financially stable, how to put aside savings and what sort of things they might want to save towards. I think my favorite part of teaching personal budgeting, which kind of goes into all of these categories, is the needs versus the wants. It's a great way to, again, become very visual and animated with your clients. What I like to do, and I think, Sarah, you saw a lot of other organizations out there doing the same thing, is that putting up photos of what are needs versus what are wants, and then having your clients move those into the categories they think is a need versus a want. For example, for the needs section might be a picture of food, might be a picture of housing or a bed, versus a wants column is a picture of a television or a picture of those fancy shoes that you might want, or something that pretty much every refugee is wanting to have and is the bane of an employment person's existence, that automobile that might make their lives easier, but that's something that we're counseling them to put off from that initial budgeting.
Yeah, that's great. It's funny that you should say that, I guess. Makes sense. A lot of the resources that I am recommending that I'll share at the end that I'll link to. Again, I just want to point out, especially for those interested in budgeting, when you get their follow-up email, you'll be able to click on each of these 5 boxes, and it'll take you to some great resources and activities and curricula that cover this in a lot of detail. So, but a lot of the resources did include talking to clients about buying a car. So it's just interesting. I definitely learned that in this process.
Or
anyway.
talking clients out of buying a car.
Yeah. Exactly. So, and that activity of needs versus wants, it's a really great activity because wants and needs are definitely connected to emotions, which is one type of activity that works best with adult learners. So, well done. Right, so now back to Amal. She's been here for 3 months, and she has a job. She's about to get her first paycheck. What does she need to know?
Well, great job, Amal. Always exciting to get your first job in the country. And of course, the biggest part of getting that job and the biggest excitement for an employment staff is that paycheck that Amal is going to get. So I think the best way about teaching that paycheck when Amal is hopefully getting her first job in something wonderful in months 3 through 6 is to start teaching about all the topics that come with getting paid and how to read a pay stub. Great,
like these topics up here?
Yep, those are them.
So how you said, so these are up here, and then we have a sample pay stub up here, the one that they might receive. And I've also included, I'll talk about it in a little bit, it's Amal's actual first paycheck and pay stub.
Wonderful. It looks like she's doing good. Again, this kind of lesson can be done essentially or as simply as showing one of these paycheck examples and then walking your clients through the visual process. What I've learned about teaching all of these things, pay periods, hourly pay, and direct deposit, is there's always going to be a follow-up lesson once the client is able to get the job and looking at their pay stub versus what's going into their bank. More questions are going to come up. But the stronger that you can make this lesson in the beginning, I think the less hassle you'll have in clients possibly not understanding how pay periods and pay work. But again, the visual aid of the paycheck is great because it can show all of these things. And if you can find one that already does the math for you, even better. Although I find a lot of times I do the math on the board on the side with maybe more simple numbers. I like to stick with tens because I know tens.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about...
so this is the resource that I got a little bit too excited about earlier. But just because it's so great and it does cover a lot of financial literacy topics, but there is this wonderful tool and, you know, taking this lesson a little bit further for you and for your clients. Sarah's going to give you a little bit more information about it.
Yeah, but I do kind of want to open up the question. Up to this point, do any of you guys out there in the network have any activities or resources or just exercises that you do with your clients that just really you find to like really work really well? I'm just curious if you think of any. I'd love to hear about them, and we can share them back out with the network eventually soon. But if not, that's cool. Just wanted to throw it out there because I'm going to promote my resources, and I just think that there are some other great ones out there too, but and I want to share them if they're out there. So I'll talk about ours. We developed Understanding Your Paycheck after I spent a year talking to people in the network I was asking, hey, what do you guys need? What do you guys need? What would be really helpful? And time again I heard paychecks, pay stubs, pay periods, deductions, that sort of thing. So I worked with our partners, our network partners, the ECDC's African Community Center of Denver, and they really kind of helped put this great module together. So it's an interactive training. It explains the differences between paychecks and pay stubs, including how to read a paycheck, what to do with a paycheck, and how to know if the paycheck is correct. It's designed for use by job seekers or employment professionals as part of job readiness preparation or training. Has a lot of great downloadable resources, including training tips for using the resource in class. It has, like I showed you earlier, Amal's sample paycheck. There's a blank paycheck, there's a sample pay stub, blank pay stub, and anything, if you ever thought a resource would be helpful to be included with that, just let us know and maybe we could put it together. But I could really want to keep talking about this, but I'm really just putting off taxes. So I put it off long enough. Nicole, how in the heck would you prepare them all for tax season?
Geez, thanks, Sarah, for giving me the hard topic of taxes.
I know.
So, yeah, caution. What's going to happen is over the course of that first year, Amal in her job is going to be paying taxes, and she'll have to file for taxes. Now, our job as service providers is to let Amal know that she has to pay taxes every year before April 15th.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these topics here under taxes are going to come up at different times over that first year journey. So for W-4, obviously, when she starts that new job, you want to make sure you're addressing what a W-4 is and how one will be filled out with your client. I know many of you have probably filled out tens of thousands of them, and if you're new to this work, just a heads up, that's what you're going to have sheer confidence on in the future. Then, you know, letting them know that throughout the year, as they're paying their taxes on each paycheck, that it'll be recorded in a form called a W-2, which will be given to them by their employer. And you'll want to kind of give them the time frame, so it will be given in the first month or two of each tax season, and that they will be responsible for filing taxes, each individual in the country that is working, and then, of course, that they might have to pay additional money or get refunded. And that's really more of a topic for future discussion, but it does tie back to that W-4 and how the client is filling it out in the first place. So making sure that they're claiming all of their dependents and spouses on that W-4 form.
Yeah, you know, taxes. Again, this our module is this is our most recent module, Income Taxes 101. It continues Amal's story from, you know, having the issue with her paycheck where she says, I've been cheated with the deduction she didn't realize. Pay periods were different. Kind of continues that to tax season when, you know, she didn't remember having to fill out a W-4. She gets her W-2.
Yeah,
and this is sorry.
Yeah, I think the great thing about this video and the other video is it kind of shows you, if you watch both of the videos, how to highlight taxes both when you're going over the paycheck and when it comes into play there, versus an actual like tax portion of your financial literacy class, where that tax portion is going to address the initial amount of taxes that are deducted from each paycheck and how that feeds into their yearly taxes and tax forms and filings.
Yeah, definitely. And this again was the result of, talking to people in the network and hearing, I have no idea how to even do my own taxes. How am I supposed to help clients with their taxes? So, I have to say I worked really hard to put this together, and I don't know that much more about taxes. I mean, I know what they are, and I know when I'm going to get my pay stub. But
you know the 101.
I know the 101.
Yeah,
we all know the 101. For sure.
But even when Sarah and I were looking for some great resources to give to you about taxes, it's very clear that most people across the country don't really understand how to file your taxes. So there are a ton of great resources out there that can take taxes and tax filings and put them at a much more basic English level learner, level.
Yeah, for sure. And there's, we'll get into it in just a minute here, but there's a lot of great organizations and free resources to help out with this, and that's kind of a big part of our module, Income Taxes 101, is kind of explaining the need to get professional help with that first year of filing and even after, but specifically for that first year because, man, you just really don't want to mess with the IRS. So I recommend checking that out. Again, I'll provide information on how to access these. If you don't already have access, I'll provide that just in a few minutes here. In the meantime, I just was wondering, Nicole, why do you think employment programs are responsible for teaching financial literacy?
That's a great question, Sarah, and I think important because it's a continuation of the lessons that are being taught in cultural orientation as one part. But a second part is that what I see as teaching financial literacy is just a larger part of a job readiness curriculum. So it's really feeding back to how to prepare your clients to enter the workforce, what it means for them to be economically self-sufficient, because just getting that income and being able to pay your rent doesn't actually mean that they know how to actually pay their rent. So you're covering all these topics because you are the best person to take them on this financial journey. But Sarah, again, this was part of a larger job readiness curriculum. And the best thing that I ever did after developing this curriculum was look for community partners to teach financial literacy specific classes to go much further into detail and to really help clients understand financial literacy, because it is such an important and ongoing lesson.
Community partnerships, huh? Yeah, that seems like it would be such a big help, really. So I know that we talked a little bit about bank partnerships already, and the benefits of them, but I just wanted to briefly mention there is a Bank On initiative that I think it's in 6 locations right now. It's a pilot program. It's just an innovative financial empowerment initiative. There are locally led partnerships between local public officials, city, state, and federal government agencies, financial institutions, and community organizations that all work together to help improve the financial stability of unbanked and underbanked individuals and families in their communities. It's an initiative of the Cities for Financial Empowerment Coalition, which is 15-member cities kind of doing that, what I just talked about. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because they actually have open request for proposals. They give $10,000 grants on a rolling basis, and right now it's an open, and you can request for that to be a part of that. So if you work in a location where you have maybe a city coalition that you're building, refugee coalition or immigrant coalition, which I know several of cities are kind of getting that started at this point, I recommend getting together and checking that out to see if you can get $10,000 to build a financial literacy initiative in your city. So we also talked about community partnerships with ESL providers, just kind of reinforce some of this content and do some English.
Yeah, and I think a lot of community colleges are already doing a lot of financial literacy classes taught from an ESL perspective. So if you have one in your area, it would be really great to partner with them.
Yeah, definitely. And that's also kind of connected to library partnerships. I know a lot of libraries offer ESL. Yeah, and also I want to mention that these green buttons will be all clickable too in the resource I'll be sending to you in a little bit. But I do want to point out the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. These logos will be clickable too. They are the organization that put out that resource. It's a downloadable resource I talked about a little bit ago, the how to pay, ways to pay your bills document. They actually have they're trying to get libraries, they have a resource kit so that libraries can build these sort of financial literacy initiatives within their community. So I recommend checking that out. I had a lot of resources about that, but just seemed like maybe I should focus on some of the other stuff. But I think it's pretty cool. They're a cool organization, and I connect them to libraries as well as just financial literacy. And then community tax centers. Like I was talking about earlier, and we covered this in our Income Taxes 101 module, it's just a great way to partner with, help your clients file their taxes. And this is the EITC Outreach Initiative. There's something like a family of 3, if they file their taxes and get it for the earned income tax credit, they get over $6,000 back or something like that. But if you don't know about it, you can't claim it. So this organization, EITC Outreach, they've got some great and beautiful outreach kits that you can download, and it's in different languages. And I also recommend them as a resource because part of that initiative is you can find free tax filing help via their website. So I'm just going to blow through a couple, some more resources here. So this is the Goodwill Community Foundation. They just have some kind of money basics modules I recommend checking out. Just kind of reinforce content that we've talked about today, as well as they've got some interactive activities, but it is internet-based, so that's an issue. Maybe just go for the they have some financial literacy curricula, but the National Endowment for Financial Education, or NEFI, I don't know if that's how you say it, but they've got some really great customizable workshop kits. So they've got one for like low-income population, and they have a presentation you can download. They've got resources you can download. It's just a really wonderful financial literacy initiative that is really helpful and provides a lot of great information. I mentioned Finance in the Classroom earlier for the currency slide, but they have so many other exercises. They have a need versus wants presentation, a lot of activities. It's really, they really want you to make your class and trainings interactive, so I really liked that one. And hands-on banking, there's a curricula, a hands-on banking curricula in the downloadable resources. I really like this curriculum because it has a lot of those budgeting exercises. It's just really, it just covers everything that it needs to cover, but it also covers in a lot of detail. So that's why I think you should check it out just to see what you can pull out of there. But I think it's a little advanced for basic, low-level education clients. So we started putting together a financial literacy collection on our website so that a lot of the resources that we've talked about today, you don't have to wait for me to send out this presentation with direct links. You can go to our website, higheradvantage.org/FLR, which is the acronym for Financial Literacy Resources. You can just click on any of those boxes, and it'll take you right to where you need to go. So for Finance in the Classroom, it'll just take you to the money section, and you'll see a really comprehensive list of resources. Keys to Your Financial Future curriculum, which I didn't mention here, but it's just again another comprehensive curriculum. EITC Outreach, what I talked about, so you can see it up there. I really also like, it's up there. Yeah, the Keys to Your Financial Future curriculum for you people that are looking for budget resources. I really like that one too. Okay, so I'm pretty excited. Oh yeah. Yeah, I've worked on that, and I'm going to keep building it. So if you guys have additional resources to add to that, please send them to me, and I'll add them to that kit right away. So at this point, I think we have a few minutes left. Not too bad. I don't want to keep you longer than we have to, but if you guys have questions, or if you want to, talk about what activities you use, or if you're looking for any additional resources, just use that question feature. And yeah, we'll see what we can do.
While people are typing in their questions, there was a question earlier asking if you could repeat how to access the Understanding Your Paycheck tool.
Sure. Well, I actually didn't say that, so thanks. I'm happy to tell you. You can go to our Hires Online Learning Institute, which can be accessed through our website, which is hireadvantage.org. And right on the top of the website, there's some buttons that's Hire Online Learning Institute. And if you have a login, you can hit sign in, and it'll take you right there, and you can log in using your username and password. But if you don't have a login, what you can do, and I should have put this up on the presentation, I apologize, is there's when it asks for your enrollment key, if you just type in, it's a 2-word phrase. If you type in the word service provider, it'll take you to sign up for a free username and password right away, and you can just get in there and start taking Understanding Your Paycheck. Just check that out, and Income Taxes 101, and then we have some other great modules too, but those are the 2 that I worked on, so they're near and dear to my heart. But yeah, so service providers, that enrollment key. But you can always email us, and we'll sign you up too. We want to make it easy for you.
So just a reminder, in response to a few questions, we will share the recording of the webinar, and also the handouts that we've been referring to are on the right-hand side of your screen. There should be a section that says handouts that's collapsible, and you should be able to download PDFs there. If anybody has any problems, feel free to email us, or will you be sharing those handouts as well?
I can share them, but they'll be linked to from the presentation. But
great.
Yeah.
Also, a helpful comment by Susan Cantor. Susan said, "We encourage clients to share information with each other about economic cell phone plans and other ways they save money and find free resources." I think that's a really great point about drawing on the knowledge and the resourcefulness that our clients have, and facilitating opportunities for them to actually, share things they're figuring out on their own or through their community, or, who knows. But
yeah, definitely.
Clients are a resource as well.
Yeah, one of the downloadable resources that I included there in the handout section, I didn't talk about it at all, but it's we have a cultural orientation expert here on staff, and I talked to him quite a bit about what you need to cover in cultural orientation in regards to financial literacy, and he offered his resource, what he gives to cultural orientation people, teachers, instructors in the LIRS network, and it's a really comprehensive slide deck with great images and really practical, helpful tips for teaching a lot of the things that we've talked about today. Didn't mention it throughout the presentation because it just it goes into a lot of detail about each of the topics, but I do recommend checking that out. And if you're interested in the full version, which it's a pretty big file, but I'm happy to send it. He would love to share it, but just let me know. I really enjoyed looking at it. And if you like that, he also has offered the employment section too, which is really good. So I have that, but didn't include it because it's, not exactly connected. It is, but it isn't. So.
Sarah, Kalita Armstrong was wondering if you have any tips or tools that might help in terms of teaching clients about the refund / how much they owe part of their taxes. Is that included in our tax e-learning module?
How much? You know, no. There's a on the EITC website. There's a calculator, but I think it's, from my understanding, kind of dangerous to say, oh, you're probably going to get this amount back, or I know, I'm not sure. Nicole, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, again, I mean, it might be a little bit too much. We're kind of covering the first few months in country here, but yeah, once you do start teaching larger topics like that, after your clients have been in the country and are ready to maybe start preparing your taxes, I would definitely, like Sarah has already mentioned, point them towards community tax resources that are much better at teaching these topics and can take it further, because I think the danger in teaching this topic is that it's very unique to each person and each family and how they're going to file and get refunded in their taxes. Also, there's the EITC site that you mentioned already, plus some agencies across the country have the Micro Enterprise Development Program, which does teach clients about their tax refund and what it can be used toward. But again, I mean, possibly I would say just probably pointing clients to resources that are out there in the community.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I also wanted to mention, I think there's 2 other resources in the downloadable resource section that I haven't mentioned because it's just, they're not curricula or, you know, practical resources you can use today, but I did include 2 just kind of toolkits that I found to be really super helpful putting this webinar together. One is for youth and young adults in foster care. It's just that a lot of the resources and the end of this resource or the end of this toolkit really apply to you know, new arrivals with low levels of English. And the second one is financial education programs serving immigrant populations. I mean, how could I not include that? It's just relevant, and again, just links to a bunch of great resources. And a lot of them I would have included, but they weren't necessarily basics. So I recommend checking these 2 out, especially if you're looking for credit resources. So I think, unless there's, you know, any other questions or comments, I think just want to provide you with the contact information for Nicole and Daniel. You can always, I'll be with Hire until next Thursday, but I'll still be around. I'm going to be sending an email out, and I'll do something via our blog to let you know what's going on. This is the first time I've really mentioned it, but Thursday's my last day with Hire. I'm going to miss you guys. So thanks for hanging with me to the end of this webinar and for everything over the past couple of years. But you're in good hands with Nicole and Daniel, that's for sure. Great moderator, Daniel. Good moderating. Thank you, Nicole, for stepping up to be interviewed for this.
No problem, Sarah.
So feel free to contact them. And I want to thank you so much for everything again. If you want access to more great resources, I said it's taken care of, but in fact, I haven't mentioned that. We're going to sign you up for the blog unless you tell us not to, and hopefully that's okay. I mentioned earlier about how to sign up for Hire's Online Learning Institute. Enrollment key if you're looking for a service provider. Yeah, let me know if you need any more resources. That's it. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.